the current tumult that we're in. Things have been far worse in this country before.
And yet, bringing this full circle,
yes,
Joe Biden is going to be addressing threats to our democracy tonight. Like,
correct.
To Clay's point, basic familiarity with what we went through as a country in World War II, or honestly in World War I as well. We lost a lot of soldiers fighting in the European theater, and then Civil War. You look at this. I think we're going to be okay with Republicans have mean tweets, and one day there was a protest that got a little out of hand. I think the country's going to survive. We're going to be okay. They can stop being such hysterics.
Joe Biden tried to compare January 6th to the Civil War. And for anybody who is a Civil War nerd, which I am proudly, it's such a laughably absurd comparison that anyone with a functional brain who bought it should be ashamed of themselves. And
they've said
we'll
it was worse than tonight. There are analysts who are supposed to be smart, who are all Democrats, who go on TV. I know one has. I think others have said too that January 6th was equivalent to or even worse than 9/11.
Yes.
And as a New Yorker and as an American, it is so stupid that people say these things. But yes, they're dishonest. I think they also are deeply ignorant of history and the challenges that we have faced alongside all of this.
6 days from now, you and I are going to be together in Nashville throwing an election night party. If you want to hang out with us for part of election night, you can go subscribe to Clay and Buck 24/7, clayandbuck.com. Go check it out. We're going to have a lot of guests. We'll be doing a little behind-the-scenes interview. It's VIP subscriber access only. You may see both Buck and myself having a few adult beverages, and we will be able to celebrate together what should be a foundational night for American democracy.
Clay has been talking about there's this thing called moonshine that they have in Tennessee that he may introduce me to. So we're going to go check out all things election in Tennessee, in Nashville, but also the next few days. Guys, we are racked and stacked with so many guests tomorrow. Stay with us.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton on the front lines of truth.
The last couple of years have been bumpy for business owners. How about a break? If your business has 5 or more employees and managed to survive COVID, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. This is not a loan. It's a refund of your taxes. The challenge is getting your hands on it.
Go to getrefunds.com. The team of tax attorneys they've put together are highly trained in this little-known payroll tax refund program and have already returned $1 billion to businesses. They can help you, too.
They do all the work with no charges up front and share a percentage of the cash they get for you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, and even those that had increases in sales.
Go to getrefunds.com. Click on Qualify Me and answer a few questions. This payroll tax refund is available for a limited amount of time. That's getrefunds.com. Getrefunds.com.
Imagine you're in a room with 4 other people. Statistically, one of you's a victim of identity theft. That's right, 1 in 5. And these aren't careless people either. They're probably a lot like you, watching their accounts and credit, but that isn't always enough, especially with your personal info in more places than ever. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself by monitoring your identity and alerting you to threats you could miss on your own. If you become a victim of identity theft, a U.S.-based LifeLock restoration specialist will be dedicated to your case and work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock or go to lifelock.com and use promo code CLAY. That's promo code CLAY to save up to 25% off your first year.
Your new News Talk headquarters.
You're on the air.
This could be very interesting.
Next level.
This
Is The Point.
Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Democracy is at stake. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. That's President Biden's message to America with the midterm elections just days away.
We must vote knowing what's at stake and not just the policy of the moment, but institutions that have held us together as we sought a more perfect union are also at stake.
The president speaking near the Capitol, where a mob attacked after President Trump lost the 2020 election. Wednesday night, Biden pointed to the recent attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband and blamed Trump for fueling the hatred. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy criticizing the president for not mentioning a slew of problems the country faces. He tells Fox's Hannity,
"We literally spell out what we'll do. Make us energy independent. Give us an economy that's strong. Secure the border. Fund the police. Stop the prosecutors who are woke. Give you a parent's bill of rights. You know what else? Save and strengthen Medicare and Social Security."
Former President Obama countering that during a Democratic rally in Arizona Wednesday night.
They want to gut Social Security and Medicare and give rich folks and big corporations more tax cuts. And by the way, the reason we know that's their economic policy is it is their policy for everything.
The U.S. State Department condemning North Korea's launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile Thursday, even though it failed. The U.S. says that is a clear violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions.
However, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said diplomacy is an option.
I want to stress we're willing to sit down without preconditions.
Pyongyang fired off at least 20 missiles the day before.
Fox's Jill Nato. South Korea says Kim Jong-un's regime test-fired at least 3 missiles Thursday, one of them the ICBM. America's listening to Fox News.
I'm Dr. Sama Bini Young. I've served as a Senator and Director of Labor. I'm also an entrepreneur and educator. As your senator, I will prioritize the training and education of students and workers to support the rebuilding of our economy. I understand our community's needs for affordable living and housing, and the need for aggressive drug enforcement to stop its serious impact. And there's a need for smarter and smaller government, like a part-time legislature that works for Guam and having more efficient GovGuam departments. Please support me with one of your votes for Senator to work for you on these issues. I'm Dr. Sama Bini Young.
Paid for by friends of Sama Bini Young. Gina Ramos, Treasurer.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
The Astros even up the World Series against the Phillies.
Real Muto. Bouncing ball to third. Picked by Bregman. Throw across in time. The Astros have a World Series no-hitter.
That call on Fox says Houston shut out Philly 5-0, becoming the second team in series history to pitch a no-hitter. Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, says anyone kicked off the site won't be allowed back on until the company sets up procedures for that.
The new self-styled chief twit says that process will take at least a few weeks, meaning anyone banned for violating Twitter's rules for harassment, violence, or misinformation won't be back on the site before next Tuesday's midterm elections.
Fox's Matt Napolitano. Authorities in Massachusetts Massachusetts are asking people to help solve a cold case that stretches back decades.
Authorities say investigative genealogy experts compared her DNA to samples in a genealogy database, and that ultimately was the key to unlocking the mystery. It has been one of Massachusetts' most famous unsolved murders, and now the Lady of the Dunes has a name. Ruth Marie Terry of Tennessee. She was just 37 years old when she was killed. Her nude and partially dismembered body was found at the Cape Cod National Seashore in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Terry's family received notification of her death Monday, according to FBI agents who say they hope her identity will lead them to her killer, and had a message for every murderer, rapist, and violent offender out there.
Fox's Laura Ingle. And the Powerball jackpot keeps growing. No one scored Wednesday night's grand prize, so Saturday's jackpot is worth a staggering $1.5 billion. That's just $86 million shy of the U.S. lottery record set in 2016. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank presents internationally renowned Slack Key Master, Ledward Ka'apana. Ledward Ka'apana, founding member of the legendary Hawaiian music group Hui Ohana, joined Grammy-nominated and multiple Nahoku Hanohano Award winner Ledward Ka'apana for 2 magical nights.
Saturday, November 12th, the Tsubaki Tower, doors open at 6 p.m. And Sunday, November 13th, the Hotel Nico Guam, doors open at 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Ambrose and at the door. $40 in advance and $50 at the door.
Slack Key Master Ledward Ka'apana, live on Guam, Saturday, November 12th and Sunday, November 13th.
Presented by Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank. Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting, The Point, Star 101, and Boss 104.
Hafaday, I'm former Senator George Bomba. Many of you remember my parents, George and Cecilia, with strong roots in both parties. I was also Chief of Staff under 2 Republican governors, including Felix Camacho. Working with Governor Liu and Lieutenant Governor Josh, I have seen up close the difference that they have made, their fairness and compassion during COVID, and strong fiscal discipline that turned our island's economy around and helped our island become stronger. Their vision for the future is bright, a diversified economy, improved infrastructure, and more opportunities for our people. You could not find any team more honest, hardworking, caring, or competent than Lou and Josh. In Guam elections, it's not only about party, it's about the people. I urge my friends and family to vote for Lou and Josh so we can keep Guam moving forward.
This is Governor Lily Rivera on High Point Business Station.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Now, well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I start the show that way every day, puts you on notice of what we talk about here. We talk about the Second Amendment, firearms, freedom, liberty, the United States Constitution, conservatism. So if that's what you're interested in, you certainly are in the right place. And if it's not what you're interested in, boy, you're really in the right place because you need a lot of learning. And that's exactly what we're going to engage in today, a little bit of learning and a little bit of fun, and another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. I start with Zemi Ikutni. That's my backwards play on words. I'm going to have to borrow Jose's hard copy for that one. No bad, huh? I didn't bring it along. Okay. Well, let's see. I did read it, and I just forgot to pack it, and it was talking about the new retirement program for uniformed services. And they, of course, it's a giveaway money type program, so the Daily News liked it. They didn't get into the actuarials, like who's going to pay for it, how much it will cost, and what impact it will have on current retirees, current members of the fund who are interested in retiring. Probably the reason the editorial didn't cover that is because the news story didn't cover it either. So we're just going to slide right on by that. It probably wasn't worth bringing down here anyhow. Next item on the agenda here is the card. And this is what I've got on the card. Of course, I've got systemic racism. And it's been a while since I talked about systemic racism, so I probably should refresh your recollections because it's an important aspect of the show. Paul Zerzan, a contributor to this show, also a contributor to Hope Cristobal's screen test, wrote a letter to the Daily News about a year ago, November 26, 2021. And this is what he said. The world is undergoing rapid change and cultures are experiencing traumatic shocks as cherished myths are destroyed by cruel realities. Guam is no exception, and we're far enough into the 21st century to face a very ugly fact concerning the false basis concerning something very central to the Chamorro belief system, and since it very much concerns feasting associated with the holiday season, now is a good time as any to acknowledge the truth. Okay, you ready for the truth now? Fasten your seatbelts. There is no such thing as red rice. I'm going to repeat that in case you didn't catch it. There is no such thing as red rice. The achoti-colored rice traditionally eaten on Guam is orange and not red. Calling it red rice for centuries does not make it red. It's orange, and a color wheel is not needed to see this. So please, let's stop looking foolish by calling it red rice, and let's call it by its proper name, orange rice. And I have a picture here. Here it is, courtesy of KFC. What color is that? I'd say it's orange. I've got something else here that's orange. And I even have a sign. Maybe we can go to the side camera, Jose. Okay, you see in orange and red. Okay, it says red, but what color is it? It's orange. And this one says orange, but what color is it? It's red. Well, that's the pattern. The narrative is the word. The actual color is the truth. So the narrative here, red rice, right? You know it's red because it says R-E-D. Okay, so I don't think anyone can make a plausible argument if we're talking about the color of the rice that you see on every fiesta table. It ain't red. Okay. So that's what Paul Zerzan calls to the attention of the Daily News lifestyle section. On December 1st, let's see, that would have been 10 days later, Therese Padua Howe, the lifestyle editor for the Daily News, comes back and says this: readers to Zerzan, leave our red rice alone. Longtime educator Paul Zerzan, he always makes the sign of the Z, a prolific writer of letters to the editor, once again stirring the pot, this time one of the island's most beloved pots, and the people of Guam are not having it. In a letter published Friday, he objected to calling red rice by that name, proposing instead call it by who he sees most often, orange rice. So the rest of the article goes into really ragging on Paul Zerzan for having the temerity to write a letter that actually deals with the truth. And, you know, I suspect there were some people saying, well, you know, it's just rice. Is it that really that important? What color it is, etc. And my answer is, in this context, it's a classic allegory or analogy for what we deal with every day here on Tall Tales, and that is the narrative versus the truth. The narrative. Two men can engage in a legal relationship, and they can be married. And one of the men could become a woman if he wanted to. In fact, they could both become women if they wanted to. And women can get pregnant. And on and on and on with this whole narrative that you know is just classic bunk. That you are born a man or born a woman. Kids in grade school knows that. All Supreme Court justices don't know that, but it's a fact. But the narrative is different. The narrative says, yeah, you know, if a person is born the wrong sex, is really a woman, but is housed in a man's body, she actually is a woman, and she actually has the ability to be dressed as a woman and be treated as a woman. Or even closer to home, if you own land that was taken by the United States in eminent domain, you are a stranger to the title to that land, just like Jose and I are. But the narrative is you are an ancestral landowner. And even though the national government has paid you for it twice, you have an absolute right to get your land back. That's the narrative. That's the red rice. The pink rice is the actual truth. And as we go through things on Tall Tales from time to time, when we run into the narrative colliding with the truth, we often announce just another case of systemic riceism. So when that phrase comes up, newcomers to the show will know exactly what I'm talking about here. Systemic riceism.
I think it's only fair, and I know we don't talk about fairness all the time, but
yeah.
You know, if Paul Zerzan is allowed to call the rice orange, if they call him according to the hue they view him as, and that's colonizer. So, boom.
Sorry, Jose, I dropped my junk.
I can't say it a second time.
All right. It probably was really good, so go ahead.
I thought it was very bad. I just said that if he's going to call him, he's allowed to call the rice orange, if they're allowed to call him the hue they see him as, colonizer. They scream it out loud.
You know, he's a colonizer.
Yeah. But one thing that's going to kill the narrative, but it doesn't seem to faze them, is okay, we'll take the issue of abortion. We don't talk about it enough, but we'll talk the issue of abortion. Only women can talk about abortion.
That's true.
Only women can decide.
Because they have a right to determine the destiny of their own bodies, right?
But I see some guy in drag coming up. Is he allowed to talk about abortion?
If he really wants to. I think if he's in drag, no. If he is actually a woman.
Oh, he's actually a woman.
If he's actually a woman. In other words, if inside his head, he's not just pretending to be a woman, but he actually knows that he's a woman. Even though he has a penis, he can still talk about abortion.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So one more time, the side camera here, Jose. Okay, so the word orange is the narrative. The color of the letters red is the truth. The narrative is the letters R-E-D. The truth is the color orange. So just something to keep in mind as we cycle through the different topics on the show this afternoon. Okay, the card. So systemic racism moving right along to 36-34 violations. Moving on to, let's see, Troy versus GMH, which is the takeoff on Ken and the Pacific Island Times versus GMH. We've got China versus the A-10, and that's a pickup on the Air Force versus Russia. We've got Civil Service Commission versus Tall Tales, and I think we're going to have some more time to deal with senatorial candidates versus senatorial candidates. Starting out with Public Law 36-34, you'll recall that an amendment to the law that's been in effect since June of last year requires that the notices of public meetings, now every public meeting of a board or commission or committee or whatever has to be noticed. The notice has to appear in a newspaper a week before and 2 days before. And if the notice isn't there, the meeting is a nullity. So the law was changed June of last year that said those notices must contain the agenda of the meeting that is being announced, and the agenda must be in sufficient detail to put the public on notice as to what is to be discussed. And the hook here is that if the agenda does not comply with the law, then whatever happened at the meeting is a nullity. It's null and void. So if during the meeting, the Board of Education decided to hire Francis Santos as the permanent director of education, they didn't do the notice right. Francis Santos is not the director of education. You got to do it over again. So today we have the Guam Board of Registration for Professional Engineers, Architects, and Land Surveyors. Now, a land surveyor or an engineer, et cetera, you think be pretty good on the small print and the dots and the measurements and things like that. Not so. Their notice said the agenda shall include call to order, memorial certificate presentations, review approval of board meeting minutes, EBA report, board investigators report. Number 6, old business. What old business? They aren't telling us. So what that could be anything that they ever discussed and didn't finish. Number 7, new business. That means anything they want to discuss but don't want to tell us about. Number 8, board discussion. Wrong, wrong, wrong. 3 bad wrongs here, guys. Who's ever doing your agenda? Now, the contact person here for disabilities is Marie N. Villanueva. Marie, you need to get your stuff together and do this right, because you could put your board in an extremely awkward position by not complying with the law. It's been on the books now for 1.5 years. What's the problem here? I think it's just a lack of interest. We'll just keep doing it the way we did it before. Why go to the problem of doing it right? Why go to the trouble of doing it right? Okay, next we've got Troy versus GMH. And Troy takes off obliquely on this, but comes back to the point. He said, this story is the first of a 3-part series about child and drug abuse on Guam. Candid's coverage of the facts about child abuse on Guam are supported by documents filed with the courts and other agencies within the government. It's our hope at Candid that reporting of children being abused and the level of these abuses will result in substantial resources being provided to help these children, protect these children and place them in secure, loving homes, since the trauma children suffer at the hands of perpetrators will require years of counseling and other behavioral support so that as they get older, they can begin to live peaceful and meaningful lives. On April 8th, 2022, Bethany Taylor, the executive director of Harvest House, testified before the legislature about the heartbreaking abuse and abandonment so many children face on Guam. Harvest House is a private nonprofit organization associated with Harvest Baptist Church. Relying on generous donations from our community for years, Harvest House has successfully placed hundreds of abused, neglected, and abandoned children and teens with foster parents so they will have safe and loving homes. According to Harvest House webpage, 1, as of April 22, there are approximately 600 foster children on Guam and less than 70 active licensed foster homes. 2, the majority of children and teens enter into foster care with nothing more than the clothing on their backs. 3, too many foster children and teens end up going to group homes or emergency shelters because there are not enough foster homes. 4, outside of Harvest House, there are no support services for foster parents on Guam, no neutral meeting places for biological parents, foster parents, and caseworkers to meet, as well as no organized event for foster children to reunite with their siblings. Ms. Tiller's gripping testimony before the senators shed light on an ugly side of our island, one that has marginalized the plight of suffering children and nearly forgotten their existence. Quote, I plead for people to visualize the faces, the names, and the stories of the abused, abandoned, and neglected children that have no voice. I tell of the significance of their lives and truth that every child matters. And I got to stop here for a second and tip my hat to Helen Middlebrook, who's been in this for a long time and has been pretty vocal about it. Why do I care? This is a lady from Harvest House again. When I got a call as a foster parent that there was a failure to thrive 18-month-old baby who was abandoned, did not know how to cry, had no energy to sit, crawl, or even roll, and had disfigured extremities because of rat bites, he mattered to us. What about my 3-month-old baby who suffered abuse, was shaken violently, had emergency brain surgery to save his life? After surgery, the doctor told the social workers this child was healthy, but because of the abuse will now have the life of a vegetable. He is cortically blind, has multiple disabilities and seizures. He had the will to live. Ms. Taylor is one we as a community must not only respond to, but as a community must be outraged about, since child abuse happens daily on Guam and continues as I write this story to you all. In fact, as recent as October 2022, one senator said that 4 children every day are either neglected, sexually abused, or physically abused, and that 604 children are in foster care. Back in 2022, it was April 2022, it was reported that the skull and ribs of a 3-month-old baby were broken by the baby's parents, that this innocent baby was taken to Naval Hospital and then placed with Child Protective Services. In February 2022, it was widely reported that Guam police officers found 6 children living in a rundown shack sleeping. The 6 children were left alone, surrounded by roaches, trash on the floor, no running water, and a toilet that would not flush. Just 2 days ago, Candid reported on 2 men who were charged on allegations they violently tortured a little boy. We posted a declaration filed with the Superior Court by an Assistant Attorney General that the child allegedly was burned with a torch, and that the child's uncle allegedly used a knife to open the wounds. The declaration also states the uncle was amused to watch this little boy cry as he hurt the boy with the torch. On July 27, 2021 at 6:15 a.m., an Off-Island Youth and Family newsletter reported a Guam Child Protective Service official saying the agency had 15 workers, 4 investigators, and 5 social workers in the case management unit. Canada is now looking at this agency's staffing pattern and budget, and with a comment to report further. Okay, that's the preface. That's the preview. Now comes the call to action. Just days ago, Candid published an article titled GMH Paying Vendor Millions for Work Done by Someone Else. Part of that investigative report exposed that the vendor with close ties to the governor made away with $3.4 million in one fiscal year of money Guam Memorial could have collected without that vendor's help. $3.4 million would go a long way to helping children in need of homes and services. It isn't their fault they aren't all in, as a term of art, all in. They can't afford to be. They can barely afford to live. We challenge the governor and the administrator of GMH to demand that every penny paid to this vendor be returned with the funds, then provided to Child Protective Service and Harvest House. The healing of our abused children has to start happening now. So that's why this is Troy versus the hospital. You know, Troy laid a long foundation before he got to the punchline here, but I think Troy, as not so unusual, makes some really excellent, hard-hitting points. So good for it, Troy. Hang on to it.
Excellent article. I just want to make a point that I made the same comment in the Facebook comments here. I have seen this testimony, not by Mrs. Taylor, but by pro-aborts during bills that have to do with pro-life legislation to justify why abortion is necessary. It is disgusting. It is revolting. And I think anytime someone makes a testimony using foster children, abused children, as their
punching bag
for abortion, they should just be mocked all over media and all over.
Absolutely.
Because they're doing it publicly.
Yeah.
So their solution to these problems is to let's terminate their lives before it even happens.
Yeah, let's kill them early and eliminate the suffering.
Go into all the legislative videos of testimonies against pro-life legislation, and you'll see those same people putting that testimony in there as their justification.
If the Republicans are so excited about abortion, why aren't they out there taking care of these kids?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a classic case of flawed whataboutism, right? You got to start out somewhere. And you have to start with a proposition that as far as our lives are concerned, life is what it's about, right? The difference between being alive and not being alive is everything. And I keep coming back to that same statement. It's never okay to take the life of a helpless, innocent human. Never. I don't care how good your excuse is, how glib you are with statements like, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. It's just routine. Yeah, let's take a short break, Jose, and we'll come back to warthogs.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday, and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mixed Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show, Kimmy A. Minor, Lickle Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Soldiers. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
All too often, governments do too little in some areas, but too much in others. Felix and I want government to provide basic services and stay out of people's lives. Government overreach will not happen during our administration. The Camacho Ada team believes in 3 co-equal branches of government, not having one exert power over the others. For more information on our plans for government services, visit CamachoAdaForGuam.com. This will be a new season.
I'm Felix Camacho.
I'm Tony Ada.
We approve this message.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So here we are. Next item on the card is A-10 versus China. And we surfaced the news that the Air Force has sent a flock of warthogs out here, A-10 warhogs, something that I don't think has ever happened before. We've seen fighters and bombers, but we've never seen an A-10 warhog. And I explained yesterday that an A-10 warhog is a plane that flies relatively slowly, close to the ground. It has tremendous armament, and it has armor. It has titanium armor to protect the pilot and the electronics.
We had a caller call in and say they're also known as tank killers.
That's right, yeah, because they have a 30-millimeter cannon mounted on the nose of the plane. And our friend Shep told us yesterday that the A-10 is built around the cannon. The F-15 is built around the ejection seat. Sounds like a good Tall Tales line, yeah. So the A-10, you know, the bombers and the fighters, you know, are for long range, flying over countries, dropping bombs, protecting the bombers, etc. The A-10 is a totally different kettle of fish, if you will. And that is that the A-10's mission is to support infantry and armor. They can kill tanks, they can mow down infantry columns, etc. So they go to war with the infantry. They're not flying 10,000 feet. They're probably flying closer to 300 feet. Very valuable tactical weapons. So when the United States decided to send a flock of warthogs out here, I checked with the military strategists and intelligence section back in the back room here, the skunk works of Tall Tales, and we suspected that perhaps there was a possibility that the United States might want to deploy these planes to support ground troops in Ukraine. But then we had one of our ace callers, Frenchie, who really understands this stuff, and tell us what the range of the A-10 is. The A-10 could make it from here to Taiwan, about a 2,400 mile range, about a 250-mile combat effectiveness. They burn a lot more gas when they're in combat. So Frenchie said that he could see the situation where the warthogs are contemplated for use in Taiwan should the peanut butter hit the fan in Taiwan. My comment was that, you know, as far as military geopolitics is concerned, it's kind of like a chess game. So when the United States moves warthogs to Guam, the Chinese know that, and they say, well, they've moved those pieces here. Should we move our pieces to the coast of China? Should we, in other words, what maneuvers should we make? Are they bluffing? Are they saber rattling? Or do they really intend on doing something? So moving your military hardware around is kind of like a gigantic three-dimensional game of chess. Well, there was more news out today that I picked up from a website called The Drive. And this is what it says. A-10 warthogs are operating from a tent village in Palau. A U.S. Air Force detachment consisting of at least 2 A-10 Warthog ground attack jets, pilots, and various support personnel is currently operating tents out of the Roman Matul International Airport in the South Pacific archipelago nation of Palau. Let's hope they know more about military strategy than they do about geography. Palau ain't in the South Pacific. It has never been in the South Pacific. The contingent, detached from a larger force of A-10s temporarily deployed on the island of Guam, is taking part in an exercise meant to explore how the service could conduct operations from a distributed array of locations in a future major conflict, such as one against China. This rare deployment is part of a larger Air Force efforts to develop new and improved concept of operations in the face of ever-growing threats to larger established base facilities, especially in the Pacific region. A-10s and personnel from the Air Force 23rd Wing, headquartered in Moody Air Force Base in Georgia, first began to arrive in Anderson on October 23. The commander of the 23rd Wing, Colonel Russell Cook, posted on Facebook on October 30, "The gang's all here," indicating the initial deployment of what is now referred to as the 23rd Air Expeditionary Wing had been completed. That post included pictures showing at least 12 warthogs at Anderson, along with an HC-130J Combat King, combat search and rescue aircraft, and also from the 23rd Wing, a C-130J Hercules airlifter. Within 24 hours, the Air Expeditionary Wing opened a forward operating site and received fighter aircraft and combat rescue forces. The forward operating site enables sustained fighter, combat rescue, and airlift operations for weeks at a time, Cook wrote. The site includes communications, security, bed-down, logistical support, and operations away from the main base. The key to agile operations is multi-capable airmen, etc. The post does not specially mention Palau, but the attached pictures clearly show Roman Matul International Airport's distinctive small tarmac. So there you go. So, you know, Palau has been in the papers because DOD officials have talked with Palau officials about establishing a military capability, and the Palau government is all for it. Now, the Marine Corps has embarked on a different strategy. Instead of, you know, the LSTs and troop ships and M-boats and, you know, the iconic pictures of the landing craft hitting the beach, the ramp falling down, the Marines charging ashore. There's a button I'm supposed to push that makes me cough. Which one is it?
I think it says mute.
Okay. Yeah. So this is part of the new strategy, that instead of having big bases and consolidated forces, there will be small forces distributed over wide pieces of land that will attack close in, and the theory is disable the enemy from its ability to defend. So that makes a whole lot of sense in the context of the warthog, sending the warthog out here. And what Frenchie said makes great sense. So looking at it as saber rattling, some Chinese military planner might very well say, I only got 12 A-10s out there. That could mean that they're prepared to support Chinese infantry and Chinese armor. I'm sorry, Taiwan infantry and Taiwan armor, or maybe put some of their own on the ground. So this has got to be part of our plans. It's probably going to cost us a little bit more money. So that's really interesting news, I would say. Next, we go to Michelle Malkin and the media cartel. Jose and I were talking about Michelle the other day. She was a very popular columnist. She was turning up everywhere. She was turning on the TV talk shows. She's conservative, very articulate, a good writer, and just everything you'd look for in a political columnist. And of special interest to us here, even though her last name is Malkin, I guess her husband's name is Malkin, she is of a Filipino extraction. As far as I know, she's the only Filipina that ever made it in this kind of mainstream media. And now she's been kind of silenced. And here's her story. When I first started writing newspaper editorials and columns for the LA Daily News in November 1992, I learned that -30-, pronounced -30-, was a journalist code for letting an editor know where your copy ended. Most media historians believe the typesetting mark originated when news was filed by telegraph. Western Union's famous mid-century 92 code of numerical and shorthand signals lists the meaning of -30- as no more, the end. I always wondered where that came from, Jose. I thought that maybe something like either 1 or 99 would make more, or even 0 would make more sense, but now we know. She said, I prefer the definition in Webster's, a sign of completion. From 92 to 99, I wrote an estimated 300 byline newspaper columns and nearly 1,000 unsigned editorials combined for the LA Daily News and Seattle Times. Since Creator Syndicate started carrying my columns nationally, I've penned nearly 2,000 weekly or biweekly columns over 1,777 weeks for hundreds of print and website clients, totaling more than 1.1 million words. It's been a blessing to work in a career that I have loved, getting paid by the line to opine as a proud, ink-stained wretch whose first high school job was as a press inserter for my hometown newspaper, the Atlantic City Press, back in the 1980s. The sentimental English major in me finds it altogether fitting to bring my column writing to a close after -30 years. Why now? The professional and personal reasons are myriad. In this modern age of oversharing, I'm not going to get into every last one. Suffice to say, the American media landscape has changed dramatically since I entered this industry as a 22-year-old idealist who truly believed the pen is mightier than the sword. Eagle-eyed readers who followed my blog writing in the early 2000s might recall that my original website logo was a penknife with the phrase, "Pen became a clarion," from a Longfellow poem. It's not just fake news that plagues us. It's sold-out, skewed news that serves corporate and global special interests, not the truth. It's lazy, soulless, dumbed-down opinion writing from hacks who care nothing about their craft. She could be guest host on Tall Tales, Jose. It's shady influence operations masquerading as journalism. It's information suppression disguised as misinformation monitoring. The homogenization of American journalism on both sides of the ideological spectrum has led to its collective deterioration. My colleagues at the Daily News were an eclectic bunch, including a Navy war vet in his 60s, a former college math professor in her 50s who taught English in Shanghai, and a hotshot New England politico in his 30s who had worked in D.C. as a press secretary. Now the liberal media is dominated by endless supplies of smug, usually very pale-faced millennial J-school grads spouting about diversity while parroting the same worn-out set of views on whites as evil, America as oppressor, nuclear families as abnormal, and liberal democracy as sacrosanct. She's hitting all the buttons. Conservative media is not much better. It's dominated by snot-nosed D.C. libertarian elites from overpriced universities who slavishly promote free market capitalism, and cast big government as our greatest enemy, will private Silicon Valley corporations and their nonprofit allies crush national dissent, handcuff free speech, and deplatform free thinkers through censorship, hard and soft, and lawfare, systematic abuse of the courts to harm political critics. Because of my peacefully reporting opinions and speeches, my family has been punished and stigmatized, my reputation tarnished, and my voice squelched. It's not big government that waged this war in my career. It's a constellation of vindictive, wrong-think police in the private sector, from the Southern Poverty Law Center, man, those guys are champs, and Anti-Defamation League, to foreign newspapers and moneyed interests that have no business influencing American politics, to conservative swamp creatures and profiteers such as Bill Kristol, Jonah Goldberg, Mona Charen, and Ben Shapiro. I was surprised to see Ben there.
Yeah, I don't tag Goldberg and Shapiro together in the same vein.
No. And even the former colleagues at the Fox News channel, which blacklisted me several years ago and told a friend who was a guest on Tucker's show not to say my name after Antifa rioters had attacked me and others on stage at a Back the Blue rally in Denver a few years ago. That's heavy. Tucker said, don't mention Michelle's name. She was attacked by Antifa rioters, so therefore she must have done something wrong, right?
She's Asian.
I have no regrets, as Paul wrote in 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. I remain faithful to every single reader over the last 3 decades, and I will eternally be inspired by all patriots I've profiled over the years, especially ordinary parents, whistleblowers, citizens, journalists, Ken Leon Guerrero, and activists who have sacrificed far more than I for their truth-seeking and truth-telling. She didn't mention Ken. I just thought I'd add that in.
I didn't want to do the honk, though. Because it's true.
It is. I'm indebted to my early writing mentors, the late Father Edward Lyons and Debbie Collins at Holy Spirit High School, my late Oberlin College English professor, Dewey Gansel, my husband and co-conspirator in all things, Jesse, my first newspaper boss, Tom Gray, Creators Syndicate founder Rick Newcomb and his staff and stalwart supporters, Jewish World Review founder Benjamin Jolikovsky, VDARE founder Peter Bremlow, Wendy McCaw of the Santa Barbara News Press, WRK radio host extraordinary Jeff Cooner, and the late FAQ host Pat Campbell. Most of all, I wish to thank my teacher, Mom, who taught me to express myself with passion and flair, and my doctor dad, who gave me a bedrock foundation in science, logic, and facts. From both of them, I had inherited the zeal to speak up for what's right and true without fear, but always with humility, which I will continue to do in new ways for myself, my family, and my country. This is an ending, but not the end. The next chapter awaits to be written. 0- as you were -30-. Yeah, what a great column, huh? Yes, sir. All right, let's take a short break, and we'll come back to the card.
Of a day, I'm Senator Chris Duenas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. Maulik is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam Maulik again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Duenas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Duenas, and I approve this message.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mix Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lickle Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Sojas. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Okay, so here we go again. I got to give a shout out here to Harvey Agna. Harvey says, I'm a foster dad of a wonderful 13-year-old girl. We are about to take a second foster child in our home. Let's give Harvey a big hand. Way to go. Yeah, and let's give Ken a big hand, too. Ken LG. Yeah. And I'll give Ken a little time to soapbox or soliloquy about his efforts as a citizen journalist. Go ahead, Ken.
I had to pull over and park listening to you read that letter or that editorial because, you know, it rings so true. I started my journalism experience back at Pacific Daily News when I was 16 years old, working for a guy named John Walters, who was brought in from New York after Gannett bought the newspaper, and I loved it. So first I'd like to say thank you, Mary Jane O'Bloy, my journalism teacher at George Washington Senior High School, who got me interested in it. And what you've seen me doing over the years, Bob, is merely an extension of that journalism. It's more like journalism activism, you know? And I share her sentiments exactly because I quit reading the newspapers for the exact same reason she's talking about. I quit reading the magazines like Time, Newsweek, and all the others for the exact same reason she's talking about. We've lost journalism. We no longer have the Fifth Estate, you know. Basically, what we have now is a extension. Because look at the news that Harvey and I have been breaking following Candid. No one's covering it. Now, maybe it's because all the politicians own the media. Maybe that might be why. But I know we're getting to the top of the hour. It is an honor to be considered a journalist these days, you know, of the old school. And when you called my name out in the middle of that story, you got me there.
Well, you deserve it, Ken.
Well, I just hope that one of these days we get some real journalists on this island, and they'll put the public interest first, because the stories that Candid is breaking, they're public interest stories. But no one in traditional media on the island will follow a story that breaks from Candid from the beginning, which is unfortunate, but thank God we have Candid and Troy Torres, who boldly goes where no other journalist will go. And I thank Harvey for digging deep. My God, does that guy dig into paperwork, you know? And he brings a wealth of knowledge to this community activist type journalism that is now starting to develop on the island. I was hoping that Lee Weber was going to pick up the banner with the Vigilance Committee, but I understand he's got a business to run. I was hoping to see the Vigilance Committee to get more involved in things like this.
Well, the Vigilance Committee has a very narrow aim, and that is the open government law and the Sunshine Law. Not to be a general. So if there's an issue dealing with those two, I think the Vigilance Committee has brought about a certain amount of change. And, you know, the Vigilance Committee had a survey that they ran for not this coming election, but the election before. And one of the questions was, would you introduce a bill like, and it's the bill that became 36-34. And that's the genesis of that law is actually the Vigilance Committee, and it's done more than any single law concerning transparency for several years. We still got a lot more work to do on transparency, and it's you and Troy and Paul Tales and Ray Gibson, the only people that are seeming to turn the crank.
Yeah, I mean, every time you go through the public notices of meetings and stuff like that, you know, more and more people are talking about it. In fact, I had a group of people ask me to create and do a class on FOIA, which I will be doing, to teach other people how to do FOIAs. Because if we had 100 people drilling down on the government the way I have, the way Troy has, the way you have, I mean, you inspired me with your FOIAs also, and counting coup when you got several judgments against government officials for not following the FOIA law.
Yeah, we do what we got to do. Ken, I got to let you go. We're right up against the big halftime show. Good talking to you.
Send me a link to that story.
Yes, sir.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The last big campaign swing before the midterms. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. President Biden kicks off a 4-state, 3-day campaign swing today to support Democrats in competitive races. Last night, he urged Americans to put democracy front and center.
Days before the first federal election since the Capitol riot, President Biden urged Americans to consider the future of democracy.
We're often not faced with questions of whether the vote we cast will preserve democracy or put us at risk. But this year we are.
Speaking near the U.S. Capitol, the president pointed to the recent attack of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband and other threats to election officials as political violence sparked by former President Trump's claims of a stolen election.
And he's made a big lie.
A statement from the Republican National Committee says while President Biden promised unity, he has instead demonized and smeared Americans.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Political discord on display last night at a Democratic rally in Arizona as a man started yelling and interrupting former President Obama.
Hey, young man, just listen for a second. You know, you have to be polite and civil when people are talking, then other people are talking, and then you get a chance to talk. Set up your own rally.
Interest rates keep heading higher. The Federal Reserve boosted rates by 0.75 of a percentage point yesterday. Fed Chairman Powell offering a little encouragement to investors as he said more rate hikes will likely be needed to fight inflation. That sent stocks tumbling. The Dow plunged 505 points. And the UN Security Council overwhelmingly rejects Russia's attempt to establish a commission to investigate its unfounded claims that Ukraine and the U.S. are violating the UN's prohibition on the use of biological weapons. America's listening to Fox News.
Half a day, I'm Senator Chris Dueñas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. Maulik is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam Maulik again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Dueñas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Dueñas, and I approve this message.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The Powerball jackpot for Saturday night is worth an nearly unbelievable $1.5 billion. That is the third largest jackpot in U.S. history, but if no one wins it, it has a chance of reaching a world record. A judge in Florida formally sentences the Parkland school shooter to life in prison.
Ahead of sentencing, victims and family members of those who lost loved ones, like Andrea Garci, whose brother Joaquin was killed, addressed the court and the shooter.
You will cease to exist after today. I just hope that your fellow inmates take real nice and cozy care of you.
Judge Elizabeth Scher verified the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, was medicated and mentally sound. She then complimented the victims and their families before sentencing Cruz.
The murder in the first degree of Martin, Duque, and Quiano, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
This was the case for each of the 17 people killed, and he was sentenced to life for attempted murder for each of the 17 injured. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The star of the Harry Potter film speaks out about the debate over transgender people in the series.
Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe is opening up about why he chose to publish an open letter in which he stated transgender women are women. This in response to the woman who created the character that he portrayed. Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling angered trans activists when she defined the biological line between trans women and women. In a new interview with IndieWire, Radcliffe stated, "I've met so many queer and trans kids and young people who had a huge amount of identification with Potter on that. And so seeing them hurt on that day, I was like, I wanted them to know that not everybody in the franchise felt that way." Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And the Astros pitched a no-hitter in Game 4 of the World Series, shutting out the Phillies 5-0 to even up the series. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday, and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mixed Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lickle Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Sojas. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile Team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile Team.
They make smiles happen.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo. Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
So another halftime show aptly conducted by Jose. Nice job again, Jose. That means we're now in the second half of Tall Tales. We've got about 52 minutes to go to the end of the rainbow here today. Actually, we hate to see Tall Tales end because we have so much fun doing it, right, Jose?
One more day.
One more day, and we go into limbo. So next item on the card here is Civil Service Commission versus Tall Tales. And I'm looking at a notice of meeting for November 8. Now, you'll recall that I made a complaint about a man named Roy Gamboa, who was working for the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Federal Programs Office under the direct supervision of Stephanie Flores. And when Roy was a candidate, not too hard to figure out that he was a candidate. And I was told that Roy was also still on the government payroll. Well, you can't do that. If you're going to be a candidate, you got to quit your government job. There are 5 really narrow exceptions of people who can continue on with their work and run for public office. And by the way, unclassified isn't the talisman. People are, well, he's unclassified. No, that doesn't do it. And I've gone through it more than once. Gamboa wasn't there. So I sent a sunshine to the lieutenant governor saying, send me all of the public records that show that you turned Roy Gamboa into the Civil Service Commission for violating the Hatch Act. And I got an answer back. There are no public records. In other words, they just let it go. Sota, Prim. Sota. Yeah. So I packaged that up along with some other material showing that Gamboa was on the staffing pattern and was a candidate. And I sent it to the Civil Service Commission for appropriate action. So they sat on for quite some time, and then finally it came back. And it was the style of the case was me versus something like the Office of Federal Programs. When Jeffrey Moose, who was counsel for the governor, came to the Civil Service Commission and says, you can't stick a government agency with a Hatch Act violation. It's got to go to the employee. And he mentioned Stephanie Flores. So a lot of other time-wasting activities occurred. They asked me if I wanted to add anything else to the mix, and I wrote back and I said, yeah, Stephanie Flores and Gamboa conspired to break the Hatch Act, break the law. So they came up with their report, and it doesn't mention Stephanie Flores, but it highlights the fact that Gamboa is no longer working for the government, so there's nothing they can do. So that was supposed to have happened a couple of days ago, but they forgot to send out the necessary notices, so the meeting couldn't be held. So they rescheduled it till, I've got a notice here, they rescheduled it till November 8th. And I imagine that I'm going to have plenty to say about it then, and I'm probably going to have to make another complaint. Because we can't do this anymore. We can't do this. Well, yeah, they're government officials. They knew that the law was being violated, but they're nice people, or they had their fingers crossed, or they said, they said it doesn't count or whatever. Like, at Public Health, we had a classic violation and they let it go, and it looks like they're going to try to do the same thing here. And of course, by pushing it off until after the election, obviously there can be no fallout for the governor before the election. And I suspect, I don't say I suspect, but, it's too convenient to hold something off like that could be inconvenient for the lieutenant governor until after the election. So I never had much faith in the Civil Service Commission. I haven't seen much of anything to change my mind, but I'm going to be like Ken. I'm watching here. Okay, so that pretty much takes us through the items on the card. And I still got a lot of work to do on the candidates. So I'll pick that part up next and spend some time giving you my evaluation of the senatorial candidates. Yeah, yesterday I did the first batch: Barnes, Bloss, Parkinson, Titano, Therese Titlahi, Vince Bora, Roy Kanata, Tello, Sarah Thomas Nediduk, and Sandra Regis Seao, and Angela Santos. And I hope you followed along, because there are an awful lot of people that flunked. You know, the right answer is, I'm against abortion. And another answer is, I don't favor outlawing abortion under certain guidelines. A horrible answer is an evasion of the question, and that's what we got from a lot of them. What is the first bill you want to pass? Suggested to me that a lot of the candidates don't know how to read, because they gave a stump speech instead of telling us about what bill they want to introduce. Some of the experience of the folks was pretty interesting. Some had some pretty dynamic experience. So I'm going to pick up now with Thomas Fisher, who's a Republican, and he's one of the two lawyers running for the legislature. Tom is a Republican from Ipan, Talafofo. He'll be 62 on the election day. He has a Juris Doctorate from the University of Kentucky. He's a U.S. Navy Justice School, went to the U.S. Navy Justice School in Newport, Rhode Island. He's been in the Peace Corps in the Central African Republic. He's been a teacher on Tinian. He was a Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps on Guam and Hawaii. He was the Office of the Attorney General Prosecution Division here in Guam. So that's some pretty interesting experience. I know that conventional wisdom is we don't want to see lawyers in the legislature because they just make things harder, right? I like to see lawyers in the legislature because, it's a factory where laws are made. So what kind of workman would you want to have working in a factory where laws are made? You'd want to have some that know what the law is all about, right? His occupation is attorney. His first legislation will reduce and sunset the business privilege tax. The current 5% tax passed on to the purchaser and represents a substantial burden. Too many of our residents are struggling because of Guam's cost of living is extremely high. This is one way to provide relief to the people. He wants to reduce the BPT. What is your stance on abortion? What measures, if any, would you support to restrict access to abortion? Now, here's a rhetorical error. Starting on a sentence with this: to be clear. Now, if you don't say to be clear, is the supposition that what you're going to say is going to be cloudy, muddled, hard to understand, etc. It's kind of like, I'll be honest with you. Oh, okay, most of the time you're lying through your teeth. To be clear, but most of the time you try to obfuscate and not be clear. Is that it? To be clear, this should have never been a political question. Personally, I value life. Now, you can see where this is going, right? In regard to the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs versus Jackson, Scott has ruled Roe versus Wade to be unconstitutional, putting the decision in the hands of states and territories. If I become a senator, I will not avoid making the tough decisions. That's why we have representative leadership. But.
Wrong.
I'm here for the easy challenges.
Yeah, but in this case, I don't want the hard challenge. I would want the people to make the decision through a referendum, because I'm tired of this issue being decided by men.
What? Women are not allowed to vote?
90% of these decisions have been written by men. This has to change. Well, there you go, Tom. Pandering, right? Yeah, nice, nice talk.
What happened to the fortitude?
Yeah, he got a lot of guts. Unfortunately, he had to take a couple of Tums before he wrote this.
Just not the right guts.
No. All right. Kelly Marsh Titano, formerly known as Kelly Marsh Titano. Let's see. I got somebody on the phone here. Let me answer this call before I get into Kelly Marsh Titano. Okay, let me pick up our Keith. He wants to go back to the Mini Hatch Act and violators who then are elected into office. Go ahead, Keith.
Hi, Bob. You know, I was listening to you tell the story of the candidate who may or may not be still a government of Guam employee. And I was wondering if the person gets elected, but they were campaigning, or during their campaign, they were a Gov Guam employee, and thus they were violating the Hatch Act. Can that be used to remove them from office?
No. Cannot.
Oh, well.
The only sanction is that the employee can be suspended, terminated, or catch and release, which seems to be the popular decision. Now, in the case of Gamboa, I wonder what would happen if Gamboa, you know, if the current administration's reelected and he's brought back to work. You know exactly what I would do. And I'd write another letter, say, here he is, you guys. You need to fire him. But I suspect that the acrobatics that the faceless bureaucrats at the Civil Service Commission engage in would say, well, no, that was then and this is now, so it doesn't work. But it's a very poor tool, and this whole thing with the GFT is a classic example. According to what we've seen, these political flyers were distributed in the schools. Now, the GFT has professional people working for it who are not government employees. But a lot of the people that have decision-making authority are government employees. So we'll see how that sorts out. First of all, I'm wondering if any Republican will have enough guts to go forward with it. I suspect not.
It would seem to me that that would be a sufficient cause to file, well, forgive the term, it may not be the right one, but impeachment charges.
Well, we have a procedure where we can recall elected officers, and a member of the legislature can be expelled. And Matt Rector came very close to being expelled. He saved himself by resigning. So the legislature could expel a member based on Hatch Act violations. It's never happened, and it's pretty hard to come by an expulsion. As far as recall is concerned, if you got the numbers and do the paperwork, you can recall somebody for a good reason, no reason at all, or a bad reason. It doesn't matter. But that would be a good reason, certainly.
Okay. Well, now I know. Thank you.
Okay, R. Keith. Always good to talk to you. All right, so next on the agenda here is Kelly Marsh Titano, formerly known as Kelly Marsh Titano, because her name used to appear as Kelly Marsh and then with the word Titano in parenthesis behind it. which was to me strange nomenclature. And it was just too hard to say Kelly Marsh, open parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis. So I invented a new phoneme in English. It goes like this, and that means parenthesis. But then this election season, she's Kelly Marsh hyphen Titano. So I wonder if she changed her name, if she filed papers to change her name. Interesting question.
She was in transition.
Perhaps. And now, of course, the 1972 playbook would tell you, you want to associate yourself with a Chamorro name because a lot of the voters are Chamorros, and I certainly know that that's true because I relied on the Bihu Na'an, Hargas Na'an, the Chamorro Na'an, Klitzkie. It's as Chamorro as they come, right? And that's it. I think that's how I made it, right? 2 times.
Deep South.
Yeah. All right. Kelly's going to be 57 on the election day. She has a doctorate in cultural heritage studies from Charles Sturt University in Australia. Cultural heritage studies. That sounds really good, right? Yeah. I said, I'll borrow a line from McNinch, when people would ask McNinch, you're a doctor, is that right, Ron? Like, yeah, I am a doctor, Ron's daughter would say, but he's not the kind of the doctor that can help people. Yeah, so, and then she has a master's in Micronesian studies at the university, a bachelor's in history and anthropology from the University of Guam. So I think her education would tell us that she is an intellectual. Her occupation, she is a community outreach specialist. She doesn't look much like Ken Leon Guerrero to me. Experience, she's been an adjunct professor at the university and the community college. She has been a cultural anthropologist at the Palau Bureau of Arts and Culture Historic Preservation Office. She has been a principal and high school instructor at Guam International Christian Academy High School and an instructor at Trinity Christian School. Public service, Senator, 35th Guam Legislature. As a means to reduce the cost of living, advance sustainability, and improve economic growth, I would sponsor legislation to establish a comprehensive energy policy. Oh my goodness, why didn't I think a comprehensive energy policy?
Please don't say you got it from the White House.
Yeah. I can't, and once again, nonsense words. You got to say something, you got to put something in the blank. It doesn't have to make any sense. It doesn't have to tell anybody anything, etc. What is your stance on abortion? Being a survivor of sexual assault as a child and having friends that have suffered an ectopic pregnancy and other such real-life situations helps me understand firsthand that the issue is complex. Here we go.
So complex, she included ectopic. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Exactly. Such complex issues must be decided upon by the individual. Now, would that be the baby? The baby's an individual. Their loved ones and their health care provider. Those tackling these complex issues need to have safe, accessible options for reproductive health care that is the right choice for them. Yeah. And here's how it works. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives.
Imagine the abuser or the person who just abused their child till it passed away. The defense attorney would say, this is really a complex situation. Mm-hmm. It was a very hard decision this parent made in deciding to terminate the life of their child, but they couldn't afford to feed him.
And besides that, when I was young, my uncle used to beat the hell out of me all of the time, too. So that gives me a special insight here. Next, we've got Joanne Brown. Joanne Brown, Master's in Political Science, University of Hawaii. Bachelor's in Political Science, UOG. She went to Notre Dame High School and graduated in 1983. She'll be 57 on Election Day. She's a senator in the 36th. She's been staff assistant for Governor Joe Adda. She's been executive director of Guam War Reparations Commission, deputy director, as you were deputy administrator of EPA, adjunct instructor of political science at UOG, senator 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 legislatures. She forgot the 28. Oh, yeah. Vice Speaker in the 28th. She's been the Director of Public Works, General Manager of Port Authority, and a Senator in the 36th. A lot of really good experience there. What is the first bill you want to pass? I authored Public Law 3634, which required broadcasting of public meetings and publishing meeting agendas for the public. Through legislation, I have supported the mission of the Office of Public Accountability to ensure public trust and assure good governance. Through their auditing process, I will continue my fight to put an end to corruption by asking the tough questions and holding public officials accountable for their actions. And that's what she's done. As a pro-life supporter, I am in favor of tightening up the abortion laws. Unfortunately, the Heartbeat Act has not been advanced beyond public hearing or forwarded to be discussed and debated on the floor. Furthermore, the Attorney General issued an opinion stating that the 1990 law prohibiting abortions cannot be enforced. That said, Guam's abortions law do not prohibit access to abortion service. It allows it. I hope you have an attitude towards changing it. Okay, then we've got Daryl Christopher Barnett. Education, no response. Experience. According to campaign materials, Barnett has been a part of the news and media industry for more than 25 years. Host of the Malfunction Show, senior investigative correspondent with KUAM, host of The Link, KUAM's pandemic news show. What is the first bill you want to pass? No response. What is your stance on abortion? No response. What can you say about somebody that's not going to play? Not for me.
Well, I don't understand why they chose to put his experience on there, but not all the other answers.
Exactly. Yeah, it should have been for his response, or it should have been no response.
Exactly.
And so we're back to Michelle Malkin again. We're trying to smooth it over here a little bit for malfunction. Next, we've got Shirley Sam Mabini Young, who's going to be 56 on Election Day. She has a doctorate in work and human resources education and a master's in work community and family education, University of Minnesota, bachelor's in international business management, University of San Francisco, postdoctoral research fellow at ECMC Foundation with North Carolina State University. Experience, President, Transport Guam, Inc., Director, Deputy Director, Guam Department of Labor. You're not the Director of the Department of Labor, you are the Director of Labor. Let's see. University of Alabama, Adjunct Associate Professor, University of Maryland Global College, Provost, Vice President, Academics, Pacific Islands University, Senator, 31st Legislature, General Manager, PBS Guam, Acting Director, Guam Public Library, Executive Director, Founding President, Guam Association for Career and Technical Education. Well, a lot of stuff. First bill. I'd like to focus on existing legislation that needs improvements or updates, as well as eliminating those that are Sam, what about the part-time legislature? You know, you just kind of cast that aside, didn't it? I got to tell you something, Sam, speaking frankly. Had you been a champion for part-time legislature, I think you'd had a really good shot at it.
She used to be strong coming out of the gate for that.
Yeah.
You don't hear much about it anymore.
No. So if she did that, I think she'd have a pretty good chance of being elected. But you can't be elected just because you're Sam Mabini. That won't work any. It didn't work the second time around. Sorry about that. Abortion. Being proactive versus reactive is key. So education first is critical. Women and men of appropriate age must be trained to receive education on this Here we go. No sense reading it anymore. Yeah. Okay, let's go to Wrigley for the seventh inning stretch.
Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank presents internationally renowned slack key master, Ledward Ka'apana. Ledward Ka'apana, founding member of the legendary Hawaiian music group Hui Ohana, joined Grammy-nominated and multiple Nahoku Hanohano Award winner Ledward Ka'apana for 2 magical nights.
Saturday, November 12th, the Tsubaki Tower, doors open at 6 p.m. And Sunday, November 13th, the Hotel Nico Guam, doors open at 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Ambrose and at the door. $40 in advance and $50 at the door.
Slack Key Master Ledward Ka'apana, live on Guam, Saturday, November 12th and Sunday, November 13th.
Presented by Kona Brewing Company, Wenti Vineyards, and First Hawaiian Bank. Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting, The Point, Star 101, and Boss 104.
Half a day, I'm Senator Chris Duenas. We've gone from a viral pandemic to a drug epidemic. It is time to stand up the multi-agency unified law enforcement group to stem the flow of drugs and combat crime with force. Maulik is not just another task force, it is a program focused on stopping the distribution of meth and opioids, as well as placing enough police officers patrolling our streets. It is time to make Guam Maulik again.
Re-elect Senator Chris Duenas. The fight continues.
I am Chris Duenas, and I approve this message.
Okay, here we go. Seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field, Chicago, the world's most beautiful ballpark. I gotta keep working here on the candidates. Next up is Jose Titlahi, an incumbent. He's a Democrat from Jonia. He's going to be 76 on Election Day. He's a George Washington graduate in 1967. He has an associate's in political science and a bachelor's in business and public administration from UOG. He was in the 35th Guam legislature. He was the mayor of Jonia from 2001 to 2013. He was the running mate of Angel L.G. Santos in the Democratic gubernatorial primary in 1998. First bill. I've been working on retirement form for GovGuam employees for several years, and I want to ensure it passes at the end of this term or the beginning of next term. The bill would provide better benefits for GovGuam employees who retire with minimal impact to the GovGuam, as it will be employee funded. This will help ensure retention of some of our most experienced and productive employees, especially public safety officers, nurses, and teachers. Well, at least he answered the question. Good answer. Stance on abortion. I personally am pro-life. That just kind of sets the tone, doesn't it? But I do not believe my beliefs should be imposed on anyone else. And you ought to get out of the legislature, because a lot of the stuff you do in the legislature are stuff people won't like, and you're imposing it on them. Yeah. I would not support any measure to restrict access to abortion, but I have and will continue to support legislation that supports adoption services, foster children, health care, and support to mothers who choose to give birth. Okay, so you're pro-abortion, Pedo.
Well, I won't impose my vote on him.
No, I won't impose my vote on him either. Then we've got Marianne Silva Tyrone, a Republican, better known as Mana. Mana is going to be 50 on Election Day. She's a veteran news anchor, reporter, and news personality for KUAM, K57, PNC, Choice Broadcasting. She's a former deputy administrator, Guam Economic Development Authority. She was a senator in the 31st Guam legislature. First bill, I intend to work on legislation that would further extend the government's ability to accept applications and conduct business online. I passed one of the first measures that allowed for application to be submitted online, and further expanding this will make government services even more accessible and convenient. I also want to make an effort to review old, antiquated laws that can be removed from the Guam Code. People say that, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Talked about this a couple of days ago.
Yeah. There are many conflicting laws and many that no longer apply today. Give me one example, candidate. What is your stance on abortion? I'm pro-life. I continue to weigh the issue, and while I listen to all sides, I feel it's very important that measures be considered that would improve sex education amongst the young and programs to prevent unplanned pregnancies. How do we weigh that one?
There wasn't the language of personally or exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good measure so far.
Okay. We don't count her as pro-abort. Okay, going on to the next crop here. Jose D. San Augustine, he's an incumbent. He's going to be 65 on Election Day. He went to JFK and graduated in 75. He's a bachelor's in criminal justice from UOG. Occupation, Senator, 36th Guam Legislature, current chairman of General Government Operations, etc. Voice coach, teaching people how to be really persuasive. A voice coach. Yeah. He's been a police officer, acting compliance supervisor, ABC, assistant tax investigator, Guam Department of Rev Tax, chairman and member of the Guam Education Board, Army Reserve and National Guard, retired active duty U.S. Army.
Former town crier.
Former town crier, yeah. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Yeah. He's been the chairman and member of the Guam Education Board and a senator, 34th, 5th, and 36th. First bill, top two priorities I would like to reintroduce are the no primary bill, tasking political parties to pay for their own primary elections. And if you listen to Tall Tales, you can do away with the parties, but you can't make the parties pay for a primary election. So if you do away with the primaries, there will be no primary election. We'll go back to the convention, the smoke-filled room, etc. And he wants to convert the gross receipts tax, the business tax, to a sales tax. There's a lot to be said about that, but he actually came forward and said something. Two real answers. Abortion. I'm anti-abortion, but I support any measure that does not allow, I cannot support any measure that does not allow exceptions for victims of rape or incest or deemed medically necessary to save a life. So if we're talking about a helpless unborn child, it's okay to kill that human if that helpless unborn child was dumb enough to choose a rapist, for half of his DNA. That makes it okay.
There's conflicting information on how he chose to be anti-abortion. Because he's not. He seems to have an exception.
Yeah. It's kind of an all or nothing game. Okay, next we've got Bistra Mendiola, who will be 46 on Election Day. She studied law for 3 years before moving to Guam. She started a career in the hospitality tourism industry and opened first retail store with husband in 2017. Now owns and operates 4 stores throughout the island. passionate about helping new entrepreneurs who want to start and grow a business. First bill. I have roughly 30 bills and counting that she's going to introduce the first 90 days. They're great bills. However, they did not make the cut to go on the voting floor to do it for various reasons. These bills are aimed at making water for irrigation more affordable for farmers, or even connecting the water service more affordable. Others will aid our small business owners, etc. All right, instead of answering the question, you decided to filibuster. Bistra. Abortion. I agree that the life of the most vulnerable, our babies, must be protected. Abortion should not be used as a form of birth control. However, after reading the numerous cases of rape and incest in the local media day after day, I can't turn a blind eye to the fact that completely restricting abortion will serve the victims of these heinous crimes any justice.
Wait. She wants to punish the victim? The baby?
Yeah. She says there's no justice for the victim if the baby can't be killed. That doesn't seem right, does it?
It doesn't.
Then we've got Jonathan Savaris, who will be 37 on Election Day. His occupation, he's retired. Wow. He graduated from Simon Sanchez in 2003. He was a U.S. Army 63R Food and Veterinary Inspector, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he was a Norwegian cruise line cook. Boy, that sounds interesting. You know, when these ads came around for working on cruise ships, boy, I was thinking if I were young and footloose and fancy-free, I would sure give that a try.
He's a smorgasbord of experience.
Absolutely. Public service, 20 years of volunteering in Dado, UOG Student Veterans Organization, President, Dado Veterans Organization, Santa Barbara Church altar server, 1993 to 2000. Well, that's some heavy-duty service. And back in those days, it was dangerous. I wonder if he got hazard pay for it. First bill. Streamline the process for veterans to gain access to medical cannabis certification in order to meet the compliance for Veterans Health Administration Directive 1315, which states that if veteran reports marijuana use or participation in a state-approved marijuana program to a member of the clinical staff, that information is entered into the non-VA herbal over-the-counter OTC medication section. Well, he knows what he's talking about. And it's an answer. Abortion. I believe that access to safe abortion should be discussed between a woman, her doctor, and family. Yeah. Further, if malicious actions such as rape that create additional trauma for the victim, the woman should have the option open and available. Yeah.
Wait, how many years did he serve as an altar server?
93 to 2007 years.
And all that time, he didn't learn anything.
I guess not. Yeah. So, you know, this idea about rape, at common law, it was legally impossible for a husband to rape a wife because the wife could not withhold consent from the husband. This was changed by statute probably during my lifetime. So it is possible for a husband to rape his wife. Yeah. In other words, the woman says, I don't want to. The man says, you're going to whether you want to or not, and somehow is able to overcome her lack of consent. Woman becomes pregnant, right? That baby needs to be aborted, right? It all depends on where you start. If you start out with the proposition that you're dealing with a helpless, innocent human, no matter how much rhetorical acrobatics you use, you're going to wind up at the wrong result unless you say never.
You know, that message of what an abortion is was drowned out by it's legal, it's constitutional. And now I think the Supreme Court made us a great service to the unborn by making it less noisy so that we can actually address who the real victim is. Not saying that a mother of a victim of a crime should not be aided to or cared for, but we got to look at that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs, and we'll come back and wrap this up.
Reggae in Paradise. Let's vibe out to some of the hottest Irie vibes on all your playlists. Join the vibes on November 19th at Paseo Stadium. It's on a Saturday, and we have an amazing lineup of artists. Mixed Plate, Bubba B, Fantasia, The John Dank Show,
Still running away.
Kimmy A. Minor, Lickle Jordy, High Water, and Rebel Sojas. Get your tickets now at guamtime.net. What are you waiting for? Presenting sponsors, big thanks to Riga Royal, IT&E, White Claw, GVB, Gasolina, Linda's Diner, and Empire Media and Entertainment. Saturday, November 19th, Reggae in Paradise. We'll see you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 furlongs, and I cross the finish line, and I ride out of here for another day. So I'm still working on the candidates. I just finished Ken Leon Guerrero, and here's something that occurs to me. You know, excuse me. When you hear me coughing like that, hold your hand over your phone. Get away from the speaker. I don't want you to catch the cough that I've been doing here. But Ken is indeed a community activist. He's out there all the time. He's digging around. He's what we used to call a muckraker, and he's performing a valuable service to the community. Would he continue to do that even if he weren't a senator? My suspicion is, yes, he would. Would he be more effective as a senator? Hard to say. Because, you know, if you are a senator, you're always wondering about your constituents. And sometimes it's harder to address a really juicy issue head on when you're an elected official than when you're not. But my suspicion is that if Ken were elected, it would be the same old Ken. He'd be out there cracking heads, taking names, and kicking butts. Next candidate here is Sabina Paris, an incumbent. We don't know how old she is. I guess she wants to keep it a secret.
A woman never reveals her age.
That's true, yeah. She has a master's in teaching, University of Guam, bachelor's in medical technology, University of Washington. She's an academy gal, of course. She's a diabetes researcher for the University of California, San Fran. Sales service rep for Metter Toledo Sales. Teacher at Simon Sanchez. Public service, elected to the legislature 2018-2020. First bill would be, next term, would build upon my work of sustainability. The work involves creating solutions for the long term that promotes health and well-being of our people and environment, rebuilding, localizing, and diversifying our economy and workforce, increasing government responsiveness. The heart of sustainability is restoring reciprocity between our people. And in other words, I'm an environmental wacko, and I thought I'd read some of the non-rhyming poetry that comes out of my...
Was the question, please state your first platitude?
Yeah. I would support legislation to preserve the right of women to make their own reproductive choices. Even though...
Takes two to tango.
Yeah, well, what about the half of the women that are in the womb?
Good.
Do they have reproductive choices? Mm-hmm. Abortion is a moral choice that should be left to the individual woman. It's a private issue with which the government should not interfere. With the high rates of sexual abuse, we need to empower our youth and women to establish positive relationships and access to overall health care. So a way to establish positive relationships is to show that as a matter of state law, it's okay to take the life of a helpless, innocent human being. That's the way to do it. All right. Next, we've got David Walter Chrysostomo. First bill, no response. Stance on abortion, no response. Yeah, it's pretty dynamic there, David. Okay, I got a couple more here. Maybe I can wrap this up today. I've got Ian Dale Catling. Before I get to Mr. Catling, I'm going to head for the green room and see who wants to chat with me this afternoon. I got a couple of phones ringing here. So I got Catling, who's going to be 44 on election day. And I got another Joe and Frenchie. So I think I can get them both in, both another Joe and Frenchie, before the end of the show. Go ahead, another Joe. Frenchie's right behind you.
Okay, I'll hurry up. So basically, if it has something to do with the government, then that means that the government doesn't need to pay for it, right? We don't have to pay for anything regarding abortion.
One would think so, yeah.
Hopefully, right? Hopefully, can make a losses. Then no way should government ever have to pay for abortion of babies. Okay, well, thanks. I'll just keep listening.
Okay, thanks, another Joe. And then we've got Frenchie to wrap up the show for us. Hello, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Robert.
Yeah,
it
hi.
sounds like you